It's safe to say that there isn't any show on television quite like Rick and Morty. The sci-fi comedy cartoon has garnered a ravenous fan base who can't wait to follow Morty and his unpredictable grandpa Rick on interstellar adventures.
I don't do magic, Morty. I do science. One takes brains, the other takes dark eyeliner.
One of the things that makes Rick and Morty so unique is just how much of it is totally improvised, making for some of the funniest, most off-the-wall moments in cartoon television history. One of the most iconic things in Rick and Morty is Rick's catchphrase, Wubba Lubba Dub Dub. But even though it later took on the greater meaning of a cry for help, what you might not know is that it came out of Justin Roiland just playing around in the recording booth. They wanted to make fun of vintage TV comedy catchphrases, and he just threw sounds around until something stuck. The first time he says it at the end of the episode Me Seeks and Destroy, you can actually hear Roiland playing around with the phrase and comparing himself to Arsenio Hall from the Arsenio Hall show.
Yeah! That's my new thing. I'm kind of like, what's his name? Arsenio. That's what Arsenio used to say on his show.
Of course, Arsenio didn't quite say Wubba Lubba Dub Dub, or really anything like it. His audience used to make more of a woof woof sound when Arsenio came out on stage rather than a nonsensical catchphrase used to punctuate a point or just fill in some time. But if they cared about those kinds of details, it wouldn't be Rick and Morty. And so Wubba Lubba Dub Dub was born, just because they all agreed it sounded the silliest. The deeper meaning of the phrase wasn't invented until later when Bird Person clarifies to Morty what it actually means. Roiland has been open about how, while all of the episodes of Rick and Morty are scripted, he is almost constantly going off script in order to make the lines sound and feel more natural to him. He also says that he loves to use what most would consider outtakes in the final episodes. You can hear that in amazing moments like the classic Gazorpazorp-field bit from the fan-favorite episode Rixty Minutes. For those who don't know, Gazorpazorp-field is an alien version of the classic cartoon Garfield. While a lot remains the same, there are some key differences, like the fact that he hates Mama Nuns days and would take a plate of enchiladas over a lasagna any day. He's also extremely aggressive towards John and, oh yeah, has a couple of arms growing out of his head. Other than that, exactly the same. Gazorpazorp-field, being voiced by Roiland, approaches John and really starts laying into him at first. But as he goes on, he loses steam a little and winds up laughing at his request for enchiladas.
Now give me my fucking enchiladas.
It's definitely not the perfect take, but because of that, it's one of the best moments in the series. You might think that the first few moments of a pilot episode would be the most carefully planned, as they were the audience's first introduction to the characters and the world that is being created. But of course, Rick and Morty did things a little differently. The entire cold open of the very first episode, when Rick shows up completely wasted and drags Morty out of bed into his spaceship in the middle of the night and tells him he's going to drop a bomb down on Earth, was entirely improvised by Justin Roiland based simply off of a suggestion from Dan Harmon. And it works! It shows the audience right off the bat what kind of show they're in for, and not only who the characters are, but who the creators are too. Seeing as how the first draft of the pilot for Rick and Morty was famously written in 6 hours on the floor of Dan Harmon's community office, on the same day that it was bought by the network, it was clear from the beginning that these guys were going to do things a little differently, but that is exactly what makes them an amazing duo. If there's anything that Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon love to do, it's make fun of just about everything pop culture. It comes from a place of love, at least when it comes to sci-fi movies and TV that the duo draw their inspiration from, but there are few people who can escape getting turned into comedy fodder by these two. They also know what North American audiences watch and love, which makes them an even easier target for some good-hearted lampooning. This is why the Quick Mysteries segment from the episode Rixty Minutes is so funny. Television audiences are obsessed with crime dramas and true crime TV shows, but have less and less of an attention span to wait for something to play out slowly. So Quick Mysteries gives them just what they want without any of the boring in-between stuff. And of course, it was totally improvised off of the original script. Seeing as it's just Roiland in the booth doing pretty much every voice and Harmon on the other side of the glass, the two just workshop ideas out loud together until they strike gold. The mysteries get faster and faster until a crime is committed before the announcer can finish his sentence. And then of course, there's Man vs. Car from the episode Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate. Once again, taking aim lovingly, of course, at a genre of entertainment that is popular with the masses, Man vs. Car is a gladiator-style show about, well, a man fighting a car. But is it a supercharged car built for fighting? Nope, it's just a regular old car. This is another one of those instances where Roiland just can't help but laugh at his own jokes as one of the announcers calling the fight.
I mean, wouldn't the cars always win?
As the man tries his bluntly beaten by the car. And he's right. The car would definitely always win. Like watching the actors try and fail to contain themselves on Saturday Night Live, there is something we love so much about hearing the creator of a joke start to crack themselves up. And the fact that it's an animation makes it even more unusual and hilarious. Rick and Morty feels so fresh and different because they don't confine themselves to any of the usual limitations or ever try to do anything perfectly. That rough around the edges quality is something you never see on TV, but we wish we could see more of. It's kind of amazing to picture the animators receiving all of the finished audio tracks and then having to figure out how in the heck to draw what exactly it is that they're listening to. Especially in the case of a scene like Ants in My Eyes Johnson, one of the most disturbing and hilarious TV segments from Rixty Minutes. It starts out as just a man with ants in his eyes who can't see anything trying to sell off some appliances at prices he hopes aren't too low, and suddenly he reveals that he can't feel anything as he touches a hot element and becomes completely engulfed in flames. We can only imagine what the process was for figuring out exactly how to animate the fact that he can't feel anything either, which seems to come totally out of the blue and doesn't really have anything to do with what was going on before. But because Roiland and Harmon are masters at storytelling and improv, they just keep raising the stakes until peak insanity has been reached. Poor Ants in His Eyes Johnson, he never saw it coming, and neither did those animators. Possibly one of the most squirm-inducing moments from all of Rick and Morty is the Eyeholes segment from Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate. What starts out as a romantic moment between two aliens who discover that they both have a couple of eye holes and proceed to get, excited about looking through each other's eye holes, it turns into an ad for a cereal we never want to eat called, you guessed it, Eyeholes. The Eyehole Man smashes through the ceiling with a megaphone and claims that he's the only one allowed to have any eye holes. The Eyehole Man then attacks the two aliens and goes about collecting the discarded eye holes for himself. According to Rick, this also happens in real life, and you never want to be caught by the Eyehole Man eating his cereal or he'll take you out. But they're delicious and melt in your mouth, so it may be worth the risk. This kind of sharp 180-degree turn into something you'd never expect is one of the things that Rick and Morty does best. And with Justin Roiland improvising everything in the booth, it gets even better. When you have a comedian like David Cross coming in to voice an alien, you might think that he would be the one to do most of the improvising. He is, after all, one of the funniest comedians on TV, with a comic sensibility and love of all things weird that would fit right in with the Rick and Morty gang. But as amazing and talented as Cross is, and while he probably could have made an excellent match for Roiland's quick wit, he didn't actually go off script for any of his lines in the episode M Night Sham-aliens.
How did this happen? Where's the abductions department?
Roiland, on the other hand, just can't help himself. There is one quick moment between Rick and Morty that was unplanned, but it might surprise you. When Rick and Morty end up in the CPU center of the alien ship in which they're held captive while trying to escape, Rick tells Morty to steal as many processing chips as he can from the ship's control center. He mentions that the only thing these aliens do well is make the chips, and he wants a pile for himself. Before they finish, the two get into a little grandfather-grandson crystal throwing fight, and this is the moment that was never in the script. Another amazing example of Rick and Morty perfectly parodying a popular genre of TV and film is the Babylegs sketch, once again from Rixty Minutes. In it, they take the standard odd couple cop formula but add a big twist. One of the detectives has the bottom half of a baby, diaper and all.
Now I'm hooked.
At first, Babylegs is determined to do it all on his own, but realizes quickly that he needs the help of his partner, Regular Legs, to succeed. You can hear in the recording that Justin Roiland has been given an idea and is just letting himself go wherever it takes him, while keeping with the tropes that we can all recognize from that very popular cop show genre. Roiland voices every character in the sketch, from Babylegs to the classically stern police chief who partners him up, to Regular Legs, the well-meaning partner who just wants to help Babylegs succeed in catching the bad guy, and even the criminal, armed with iconic lines like, "Ooh, I'm the killer, I'm running." In the end, Babylegs learns a valuable lesson about teamwork, and how just because he has baby legs doesn't mean he's any less of a detective. One of the most common recurring improvised moments from Rick and Morty are, of course, Rick's rants. While they usually set a course for where Rick needs to start and end up, everything in the middle comes out of Roiland knowing his character better than anyone else, and just allowing the words to fall out of his mouth. There are two specific rants that came at the end of Season 1 and 3's first episodes, just after Morty's world was turned upside down by Rick once again. The first that we're thinking about is the one that Rick gives to Morty as he writhes in pain on the garage floor at the end of Season 1's pilot episode. This happens as the megaseeds wear off and he loses all motor functions. As the music swells, Rick gives a version of a classic rousing speech, but in the usual Rick and Morty fashion,
Rick and Morty forever and forever 100 years. Rick and Morty some things.
it all goes completely off the rails as Morty foams at the mouth and his grandpa does nothing to help him. Things like Rick and Morty forever, forever in 100 years, and rickandmorty.com may not have been in the script, but became instant favorites with fans everywhere. And of course, we couldn't talk about that previous rant without talking about the Szechuan Sauce rant from the end of Season 3's premiere episode that changed the world. Or at least caused complete pandemonium from mobs of fans who became obsessed with the elusive sauce and a restaurant chain who tried to profit off of it. In the speech, Rick tells Morty that this upcoming year is going to be the darkest yet, and that all of his motivations were driven by getting another taste of Szechuan sauce. We know now that Roiland and Harmon never intended to cause such a stir with this offhand joke about how shallow Rick's motivations are, but if Rick and Morty fans taught us anything, it's that they take their favorite show very, very seriously. And then, when McDonald's got involved and decided to capitalize off the hubbub that the episode had caused, things got even crazier. We're guessing that Roiland and Harmon never imagined that this one joke would end up causing riots that had to be broken up by police. But that just goes to show that you never know how fans are going to react. And people are serious about their sauces. Without the episode Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate, a whole generation might not have heard about the 1980s actor Jan-Michael Vincent. And most of us still don't really know who he is, to be perfectly honest. But thanks to the fake trailer for the movie Jan Quadrant Vincent 16, we at least know his name. In this high-octane action movie trailer, Justin Roiland goes about assigning Jan-Michael Vincents to various quadrants because we all know that he can't be in two quadrants at once. There are only so many Jan-Michael Vincents, and way too many quadrants for them all to protect. It's a quadrant world, and Jan-Michael Vincents are all just living in it. He warns us that this January, it's time to Michael down your Vincents, which is the most improvised thing we've ever heard in our entire lives. But hey, if they wanted to make that movie for real, we'd see the heck out of it. Of course, none of it makes any sense, but they absolutely nail the Michael Bay-style action movie trailer with enough explosions and cool guy moments to keep the audience's hearts racing. One of the times when it actually makes perfect sense for there to be a ton of improvisation is also from the episode Interdimensional Cable 2 Tempting Fate. It's the sketch called Funny Songs, starring a stand-up comedian who makes up songs on the spot and promises that they will indeed be totally made up and very funny. Like a lot of stand-up comedy out there, it isn't. But that's the point. He calls on a member of the audience who happens to be a tax attorney and then makes up a song about his job off the cuff. The lyrics are, well, let's just say they're not as catchy as Get Swifty, but the audience doesn't seem to mind, they laugh right along with him. And then when the song is over, the comedian calls on security to kick the man, who he calls an orthodontist, out of the club. The security guards take the man out, but things get a bit more interesting when unexpectedly the comedian sicks some wolves on the man before a couple of demons show up to suck his life out. You know, just normal comedy club stuff. One of the best uses of improv on the show is whenever Justin Roiland is called upon to come up with names for things or aliens off the top of his head. He's done it a number of times over the series and it's always amazing. In Rixty Minutes, we have the best introduction to Saturday Night Live ever, which sees the show starring a piece of toast, two guys with handlebar mustaches, a man painted silver, Garma Narnar, three aliens whose names escape him, a hole in the wall where the men can see it all, and of course, Bobby Moynihan back for his 24th consecutive season. In Interdimensional Cable 2, in the sketch about Steely, Steely unpacks all of his stolen goods and the results are hilarious, including a bag of Bobbish, apparently worth 8 grapples, a Plumbus for 6.5 grapples, and some crushed red party cups for 15.5 grapples. Fun fact, this is the first appearance of the Plumbus, but later in the same episode we were lucky enough to see how they're made. What does a Plumbus do? Well, everybody knows that, so there's really no need to explain it. While all of these hilarious moments are enough to make us go back and rewatch every episode of Rick and Morty immediately after this video is over, we just couldn't leave without talking about our absolute favorite. The story of two brothers with a strong bond who know how to handle business as a humble tale of family and survival against all odds, with a little bit of saving the world in there for good measure. There are cat monsters, a giant tornado, things getting kicked into 12th gear, and of course, old women. What is this movie, you ask? Well, any Rick and Morty fan worth their salt will know that we are, of course, referring to the trailer for a movie called Two Brothers, once again from the episode Rixty Minutes. Or to be more specific, Alien Invasion Tomato Monster Mexican Armada brothers who are just regular brothers running in a van from an asteroid and all kinds of things, the movie.
Oh, jeez.
What is clearly one of the most amazing stream of consciousness movie trailer narrations, if not the only one, became an instant fan favorite and one of the best improvised Rick and Morty moments of all time. And these aren't even all of them. Rick and Morty is absolutely packed with so many amazing improvised moments that we couldn't possibly count them all. Tell us some of your favorite moments from the show. Is there one that you love that we totally missed? Let us know down in the comments, and we hope you had a squanch time watching this video.